continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with we. My name is EJ, I got my man.
Mage.
Yes, he's the DB of the show. We are Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here, interviewing the best professionals in the game and in the boardroom. We are covering it all, laughing at it all, while providing a platform to be heard. So you know what we do, man. Without pause and without pause, we want to welcome our guest to the show. So he's a man of many honors. All right, so we'll start with several of them just to get us started. So including the top 100 man of distinction. All right, then we're going to cut it down a little bit, and he's a top 40 under 40 business professionals, right? And then we're going to cut it down and just let him know how exquisite he is. He's a top 35 millennial influencers. So then you go into a little bit of his alumni monikers, right? So he's a Turk, he's a Bear, and he's a Hoya, man. So all of those things really rounding him out, giving him and developing the sports experience that he's had. And, some of his favorite colors, I'm not going to say all of them, but we definitely know some of his favorite colors are purple and gold. And we'll let you get into that a little later. But, man, as we dig in, man, we're here to talk about the rebirth of sports. Please, please, please clap it up for certified player agent and owner of Renaissance Sports Group. Please clap it up for my man, Anthony Johnson. And clap it up. That boy good.
hell of an intro, man.
Man, we got you, man. So, hey, how we start our show, man, is with the shoot your shot moment. This is a little icebreaker, just something to get you on your toes, get the conversation going. And this is a shoot your shot moment. And, we definitely want something that you could have won, you could have lost. It could have been, maybe finding Mrs. Right, finding the wrong job interview, anything that's kind of happened, but just a specific shoot your shot moment.
I can shoot my shot at anything, anybody.
Anything, anybody, anything that's happened, a win, a loss, but just a shoot your shot moment when you bet on yourself.
Oh, give you one. Oh, I'll give you one moment. I shot my shot. One is just starting my agency. First and foremost, I just keep it simple there. A lot of people wanted to get into this space for a multitude of different reasons, man. But as you mentioned, with all of the experiences that I had from the entrepreneurial aspect, I didn't want to keep twiddling my fingers waiting for somebody to give me an opportunity. I decided, okay, let me use my experience and apply it to what I want to do, and shot my shot and said, let's just build this Renaissance thing and get the ball rolling.
Let's go. Love it.
Love it, Anthony. Where your love for sports start?
Great question. I played ball. I played football. Played in high school. Had some interest to play collegiately. Only thing Maryland offered me was to be a preferred walk-on, so they didn't offer me a scholarship. I had some interest from some other schools, but Maryland. Part of the reason I selected it because they gave me the preferred walk-on option. They gave me some academic monies from a scholarship perspective, and it just was close to home, but not too far. So, but played football most of my life. And been loving it, even though I'm an NBA agent, right? To play football, that's where it started at, honestly.
No, I mean, Baltimore is rich with talent, obviously in youth and high school, and we can go down the list of NBA and NFL stars that have came from that neighborhood. So kind of give us a little background of growing up in Baltimore.
Oh, man, I think I like to say it's no disrespect to New York, but I say if you can make it from Baltimore, you can make it anywhere. You know what I'm saying? New Yorkers ain't gonna like that, but they got a lot more resources and access than what we have in Baltimore. Man, but it hardens you, but it also makes you extremely proud to be from that city, because of the experiences that shape you. So yeah, I grew up on both sides. I lived in West Baltimore for one portion of my life, then I moved to Northeast. My younger childhood was harder than my high school. Middle class, I got to that point, but come from, like many of us, single parent household, but had a pretty good upbringing. I'll say that, despite the circumstances. But I think also when you get to the city of Baltimore, some things, because it's such like a closed-in world and space, and this was pre-social media, you don't really know to what degree, how hard or how trying or how violent your city may be until actually you step out of it. When I went to University of Maryland, it was an eye-opener for me. You know what I'm saying? To like some of the things that were like defense mechanisms or norms as it pertains to how we moved as Black men in our city. That wasn't normal when I got to college, and I felt like everybody was just so nice, and that wasn't necessarily the dynamics for me coming up in the city of Baltimore, man. But I say that to say we we're once we step out of that city, we protect ourselves. We're very proud of anybody who goes against us. But internally, we have our own struggles.
And that's funny you said nice, right? Because and when you talk about defense mechanisms, before, like growing up, you're like, why are you nice, right? Like there's an angle, right? Like, you was like watching out and thinking about it and then going to a whole different perspective, man. That's interesting, and I definitely understand the dynamic.
Yeah,
So
man, for sure.
Go ahead.
No, I would just say I'm so accustomed to the point of the defense mechanism. Like I grew up when you walk past certain men, it wasn't like it's friendlier now. Like you wasn't introducing yourself. You were looking at them to see if they were trying to plot on you, if they were trying to bust a move, or if they were even looking at you funny. But when I got to college, it was just like people were just normally saying, "Hey, and how you doing?" and "Hey, what's going on? Where you from?" And it was like it was a culture shock to me. I'll be honest with you. But it also made me step back and it was like, "What the hey, we're really we're kind of angry, But I mean, times have changed, but that's how it was for me at during that era when I was transitioning into college. I think social media has kind of changed our culture a little bit more, made us more of a friendly city, etc. But that time it was different.
Right. So high school football, first love, man. So running back, man. So let's talk about some of the stats, man. Let's talk about how it was, man.
I was all right. I was all right. Go hold my own, trust me.
Absolutely. So what was kind of the offense you guys ran?
So unfortunately, I think that's what hurt me though. We ran a wing T. But I still, for my senior year, I still had a pretty solid season. About 10 touchdowns, maybe somewhere around 1,000 yards. But we spread the ball around, so that was pretty good for me. You know what I'm saying? In my junior year, I got hurt, and I think that ultimately hurt me a lot in the recruiting aspect because now that I know that's a key year as far as, and this is pre-YouTube, I know y'all hear my Baltimore accent coming through. This is pre-YouTube. So it wasn't like I'm making VHS highlight tapes, we're sending to colleges. I didn't have a link that I could just share out. So it was just a very different trying time, man. But we ran a wing T offense. But I will say once I transitioned from college to high school to college, it really opened my eyes up to the business of the industry and how things work from just measurables to relationships. And I got game on that at a very early age in the process, even going through the process of potentially being a preferred walk-on. It was really through one of the guys that University of Maryland was recruiting was one of my teammates. But just having they seen my highlight tape. He mentioned it to him, but me having a relationship with my wide receiver, that kind of got me that intro of me even meeting with the coaches to potentially be a preferred walk-on. So it gave me some early insight into the game and the industry, but also helped me realize early I was a 5'7", 160 running back. I like going to the NFL, so let me really lock in on what I want to do, So it helped me make a career decision early.
Shout out to Barry Sanders.
Tavon Austin from that area. Yeah,
he came right after me. Yeah, he was tough.
Yeah. He Dunbar. Is that where he went
Dunbar
to?
guy.
Yeah,
Dunbar.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an outside the box kind of guy, and I love ball. I love talking ball. The running back position, you got aiming points, but a lot of time your natural kind of ability and vision kind of take over. Some things are uncoached, so it's a natural thing. So how, I guess, the characteristics of being a back, particularly undersized back, how does that carry it over to, your professional life now and the way you move?
That is a great question. That's a great question. One, I think
that Vino hitting, boy.
Yeah.
Cheers, everybody.
Yes, sir. I would say one thing I'll say is this, man. One, even though I'm NFL NBA certified, I do dab on the NFL side. So I think just having that eye just for talent's natural explosiveness. And I think that matters a lot because a guy can be fast but not look fast, and you can really see, and you need that high, especially a heightened degree of explosiveness at the next level. So that's something that's transitioned just from a scouting perspective. Now, as it pertains to just like, I guess, how running back skill sets transition to business, you gotta really think that one through. I think what the skill sets that you acquire from a running back is to go with the flow, but ultimately, man, to adjust very quickly. And I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to acquire some of those capabilities because you're always moving and adjusting on the spot because things are being thrown at you. Things don't ever go as planned as an entrepreneur. You get what I'm saying? And a running back, they can say you run up that 4 hole, but that thing closed. What you gonna do? Like to get to that light. So I feel like that's something that's a very simplistic way of how it transitions to entrepreneurship.
Love it, love it.
So, how did we get the transition? So we definitely see the love. You went to Maryland. They brought you on, like, you kind of talked on the preferred walk-on. How was that recruiting process? You talked a bit about it, but like, what things did you kind of learn from that you kind of remembered, or you kind of, keep in your toolbox right now as you are in the biz?
So one was just I didn't get recruited real heavy. You know what I'm saying? But I also understood the politics of it. So I was one of the better players on my team, but my relationship wasn't the best with my coach. So I noticed, with that being said, it was guys that I was better than, that he was nominating for All-Star games and getting them opportunities. I'm like, this don't make no sense. You know what I'm saying? But it was giving me insight into the politics of, how to play the game early. And I think also that plays a relationship in coaching, or at least at that point, of like players' opportunities to be scouted, right? So I understood that and how it matters, and I still feel like that has a correlation with me when we're recruiting players. Like, what's your relationship with the coach? How that could trickle up too. But also, man, when I transitioned to Maryland, I had also had a realization that I thought I was working hard, but I really wasn't. You get what I'm saying? I was working hard in a grind of like putting myself out there, meaning like, hey, I'm all these schools. I got accepted into all the colleges I applied to, with the exception of one. They put me on the wait list. So every college I applied to, I sent my highlight tape. So I understood that grinding aspect, and I think those things were just like things that just naturally transition. But also, when I got to the campus, I realized that it was guys from surrounding counties that were bigger, stronger, and faster. And it wasn't because I wasn't working, but I just wasn't working right. I was ignorant of the process, and I thought I was working hard, but not in comparison to the competition. So for me, it was like, I'm not going to let that be an excuse. Again, this is really pre-social media. So you might be running some stairs and you think you fast, but I didn't really go to a lot of camps to really know how fast I was. Again, coming from a single parent household, my mom didn't really know that much about football or how to get, our son was good and he's scoring touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? like I'm going to show up to the game. But it wasn't like, oh, I need to send him to this college camp and all these other things. So I wasn't as aware as to the entire ecosystem of football. And at that point in the DMV, that information wasn't as readily available either. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't 7-on-7 wasn't a big thing at that time. The camps wasn't as big unless you went to the private schools or some of the surrounding county schools. So you kind of had to be in the know to get some of that information at that point. So those experiences really shaped me, one, to just not allow ignorance to be a hindrance for me going forward. And also just understanding like, hey, doing some activity gets you some context. And me applying and reaching out to camps, it got me an opportunity to potentially be a preferred walk-on without just sending the tape to every school that I got accepted into. So that motion mattered. So I learned a lot from it. And then I would say, to even take it a step further, when I got to Maryland, the guy, I think where politics really kicked in, the guy that recruited me to be a preferred walk-on, he told me about coming to the tryouts. By the time I got there, the guy got fired. You know what I'm saying? So now, don't nobody know me. Don't nobody know. And I'm not at like a Dunbar or a school like Baltimore, like that they knew. It's like I went to a public school. So it wasn't a school that was as credible or that was as recognized, and I didn't have the measurables. So that was just like, oh, this is going to be an uphill battle. You know what I'm saying? So that's my story.
I'm gonna have to drink to that, because you taking us back to the Old Testament. To the Old Testament. I resonate with that so much. How many schools did you apply for?
I probably applied for about at least 10, 15, at least 10, 15.
Mm-hmm. And you said you sent tapes to all of them?
Yeah. I made a copy of all of them.
Talk to our listeners, for those that don't know what that life is, and you can just send the link.
Shout out to my wide receiver, who's actually, he works for the Raiders now. His name's Sheldon Bell. He went to Duke University. He was my star.
Hold on, wait a minute. Who dropped the bomb, man? Let's check out Sheldon Bell right now.
We gotta get to a Sheldon question.
Oh man.
Let's go.
Shout out to Sheldon Bell, because his dad recorded all of our games. So our team didn't even record it, but Sheldon Bell, dad recorded the game film, and I was able to get all the copies. That's back in the day when you had to have like 2 TVs. You copy it and record it. So
they don't know the struggle, Ant. Yeah, they do not know the struggle, bro.
Ironically, I still have one copy of that highlight tape today, so I got to digitize it, at this point. But
Let's go.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to get that out there, man.
making all those copies, man. So I had to make about 10, 15 copies. And then when I was sending letters out to schools I got accepted to, I found out who this coach, assistant coach, and I'm mailing them my highlight tape. You know what I'm saying? I had some coaches who was more interested in saying like, hey, when you come to campus, I want to meet with you, blah, blah, blah. But at that point, I already had went to Maryland, seen the campus, talked to the coaches about being a potentially preferred walk-on, and it kind of was my sights was set on that, and they were giving me some academic scholarship money. So I'm like, all right, I'll take some of this free money and keep it going.
Man.
Shout out to Sheldon, man.
Shout out to Shell Bell, man.
Yeah, that's my guy.
Oh, my God, too, man. Good people. All right, so
small world.
Yeah.
So kind of keeping on top of education, man, like, a lot of people don't notice. And like, I mean, I think for the Celtics, they're kind of talking about how, James Brown's just like how academic he was. Two-part really, like what kind of pushed you, to kind of move on with your education? Because one of the things we did in the roll call is saying that, you have some HBCU when you, got your, what was it? Is it the certificate? No, excuse me. You got your MBA from Morgan State and a certificate from Georgetown, man. So what made you push through to kind of continue that education?
So initially, man, one, as an undergrad at Maryland, they didn't have a sports management program. But they had something called an individual studies program, which as a student, you could essentially create your own major, right? And me creating my own major, I was fortunate enough. It was a lot of work. I had to create my own curriculum. I had to write a 30-page thesis. I had to find a faculty advisor who was willing to guide me in this process and get interviewed, etc. What that did just initially was got me really serious about focusing and having a better understanding of the space. Because part of my thesis was just understanding Blacks in sports, Black representation in sports, right? And getting more insight into that, the managerial stuff. So that really had me super locked in. Now, initially, I was considering being, with my football background, being also an NFL agent, which I still may do at some point down the line. And I knew as an NFL agent, you need to get a master's degree. So for me at that point, I knew I wanted to be a sports agent, or at some point, if I'm not going to be a sports agent, I want to be at some type of C-suite level position within a sports organization. So I looked at two options. I looked at a law degree. I also looked at an MBA. I seen a lot of people who were executives had MBA backgrounds. And I didn't necessarily need a law degree, and it took longer for me to be certified on the football side. So I decided to go the MBA route. And that's kind of the how and why that got started. So football drove me to kind of get that master's degree because the NFL was the only league that required an advanced degree. But ironically, I'm not an NFL agent right now. And then when it comes to the certificate, that was something that I felt like just made sense with just how, one, my profession was moving, but also the world was moving. Just having a better understanding of social media. I think it's even more prevalent now when you think about like the NIL world. So getting a certificate in social media management from an institution like Georgetown also gives me added credibility. And I feel like, man, when you're a Black face in these spaces, you gotta be degreed up and your T's crossed and your I's dotted, because they're going to be looking for a reason to critique you anyway. So want to come correct.
Absolutely.
What kind of piqued your interest? Because I know back in the Old Testament of like college ball, you hear the word kind of agency, and you gotta you think of blue chips and all kinds of behind the scenes stuff. So like, what piqued your interest kind of early on? I'm really interested in that.
So yeah, back in that, I sound old. We talking about back in the day, but during those times, it was not no ballers, or some shows that kind of high over the Rich Paul, who's Nicole Lynch, who kind of glorified and magnified the position within our communities. It was not any of those. You had maybe Bill Duffy, but you really had to be in the know to know who Bill Duffy was. Or some other, I forgot. I can't remember. I'm losing. I can't remember Deion Sanders' agent's name. I forget. Eugene Parker. Yeah, Eugene Parker. But those, you had to be like in the know to even research and find out who those individuals were. So when I grew up in Baltimore, only agent movie I had ever seen was Jerry Maguire. That's the only agent movie I ever seen with Jerry Maguire.
That's it. Show me the money.
Yeah, that was it. That's all we had at this point. But I knew early on I wanted to work in the business of sports, and I was fortunate enough. This one gentleman it was one agent. It was only one other Black agent in the city of Baltimore at that point. Cool enough, I knew him from just growing up. He knew my family. Drove his car to my prom, everything. So we already had an existing relationship, and that at least let me see that it was somewhat tangible for me to achieve it. So that was something that was added motivation. He kind of served like kind of brought me under his wing as like a flash mentor in some capacity, right? So that I think that was added motivation. I could see something that was tangible. And then once I got into it, and once I really became an entrepreneur myself, I knew I knew I could do it. At that point, it's just like, okay, just executing, doing what you've been doing, and applying to something you really love and want to do. At that point,
Love it. So MH and I have this kind of conversation and this battle back and forth a lot. So definitely want to have your weigh in on it, you know what I mean? Because definitely around the same area. So with how things are changing, what do you think and MH jump into if you want to add to this once I kind of give like the underline, but how do you feel versus the need or just the college experience versus all the other options that people have now? And it's more in basketball, of course, because, there's rules, but just what do you feel? Is there still a significant importance to go to college or not? And MH, jump in and kind of pepper that question or edit that question.
I'm chilling. Nah, I'm listening.
your question was: is it important to go to college?
Is it a value or, because now with NIL and just with colleges, you may have people reaching out to you, right, that know what you do as far as your agency and things happen. Are you promoting and pushing? And I know it's going to be case by case, but I'm saying like in overall, what do you think is best for, a situation, blanket, college or these other options? Got
you saying go to Australia for a year.
Go to Australia. You got Overtime Elite. You got the G League. You got all these other options right now that can allow you to skip going to college, right? Especially, and that's why I prefaced it's more in the NBA realm, of these one and dones. So what is your kind of opinion on that? I won't say to give a one way or the other, but just what's your opinion? We'll go that route.
So the cliche answer is definitely case by case. Let's just start there.
Of course.
Let's start there. It's definitely case by case.
Great answer.
But I mean, with how the climate is shaping, I think you really got to understand who the athlete is and like their personality as well. Can they handle going abroad, or do they need to go abroad and really lock in and play against some grown men on a consistent basis? But now with NIL and the amount of money, if you're a one and done guy, the amount of money that you could potentially make, it's like, well, why, if you're emotionally mature enough, why would you go overseas when I can make just as much or more, build my profile to a higher capacity, now I have more marketability, and then transition to the league. So it really depends. But I also see the side of you could go to, like if you're like Ball, for instance, he already had a profile. He's a unique case. He already had a profile. He went abroad for a season and then came back, and he might have expanded his market now in Australia. But he was already so big at that point that it made sense for him to just kind of be more international. And if you look at how he's transitioning, he's really a brand. So in that instance, I could see that. I think it's really case by case. But if I'm just speaking generally, if I had the option to choose, and let's say a kid equal, and they have a following, they have an influence. I mean, they're already mentally and emotionally mature and physically mature. I'm gonna just say stay here in the States. And then you can still get like finalized person, especially if you got the right trainers and you can create the right ecosystem around them in addition to what the university is offering. I would probably say stay here in the States and for that year, and then just go to the league. And make sure like that was his side. That was his side.
Not necessarily, because you just said stay in the States. You can stay in the States and do Overtime Elite. You can still do the
Overtime
G League.
Elite is kind of set up now. It's not like how it was initially. It's kind of like, the most Overtime Elite guys are now transitioning to go to college. So it was kind of like it's not like it was initially, it was kind of almost a place to be an alternative to Ignite or to prepare, but now they've kind of shifted their direction, in which now it's kind of like just NIL purposes, or like almost like a prep academy, you may say. And now guys are transitioning from OTE to another program and then going to the league. So,
I mean, a guy like what's my guy's name? North Carolina Baycott, or that was who's in college for 20 years. So like he started in OTE. He's still there. Like, but I'm saying, like,
but it makes sense depending on
a brand
who you are.
Carolina. That's his brand. And even a guy like Cooper Flag, I mean, he's like the controversial white dude just because he went to Duke with Christian Laettner and JJ Redick and Bobby Hurley. So like his profile is going to even increase. That's outside of his already skill set.
Cooper's profile should increase, but it's all I think storytelling and all those things matter too. I think Duke does a pretty good job of telling stories, but also Duke has had some high level guys go there last year, and I don't think there was not a lot of conversation about them in the college basketball world. So it matters because also I think when you get into college basketball, you also are playing against those Armando Big Cots of the world. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like, well, your story is written, but if it ain't written and has winning infused into it, then the story don't pop the same, right? So it's a lot of things that can get mixy when it comes to that. But I do think Duke they're going to leverage and push and elevate Cooper, hopefully, accordingly, because he's an elite talent, but he's also already coming from an elite program in Mount Vernon, which he played with multiple NBA guys on his future NBA guys on his rosters anyway. So I think he's equipped for whatever's probably going to come his way. But also going back to the Armando Bacot situation, he could have explored the NBA, but let's just say if he's a second round pick, if you look at the second round of the draft, some of those guys get waived. You know what I'm saying? So you can play that game, or I can get it for sure, whatever the amount of compensation, whether it's 6 figures or more. I don't know what he's getting paid. Let's just say it's somewhere around that for the next couple of years, and then still potentially be that pick. Then it's a good situation. You know what I'm saying? And you've gotten guaranteed dollars for you and your family. So I get it. You're playing the game, playing it well too.
Let me ask you, basketball-wise, is it still I mean, there was a period of time where I felt it was advantage for the European player because you didn't really see who they were or know who they were, and then you kind of see them draft. I mean, obviously people in your world knew who they were, but to the general fan, you didn't know who they were, and then all of a sudden you would see them top 10, top 5, but now the general public can kind of watch them, So is there still an advantage, or it comes down to like style of game? Is
there still an advantage to play in the States?
In general, I always felt like we always had an influx of European players, top 15 for about a good 5 to 6 years. And I feel like now we're starting to get a little bit more American-based players, just because I think you can see them more to just kind of the general public.
Well, I think internationally it's not just European anymore. It's half of the first round pick is probably going to be international basketball players.
Right.
That's just the league has done a great job, I guess, of expanding their brand from the dream team to on. I feel like a lot of this is just descendants of that, and coupled with social media continuing to push, and the league is just being very intentional. And I think it's a lot of talent. Basketball, obviously, is a sport like soccer. It's a very global sport, right? Yeah. So I think that's going to continue to be the case, which also is interesting for us here as agents here in the States, because it's like, well, if the first round picks are becoming more and more international guys, then there's less and less guys for us to recruit that might be first and second round picks here in the States. But also there are programs like, even you have guys now who are labeled as international. I think, what's a guy named Trenton Edwards, for instance. Trenton Edwards is a United States guy, but he went and played in Australia for a year. So I don't know if they're going to label him, but he's going to be in this upcoming draft, right? So I don't know if he's considered, you would label him as an international player coming to the draft or a USA guy. You know what I'm saying? So it's also, to the point to your earlier question, it's a hybrid of that. Some guys are now going abroad, playing for a year, and then coming back because they just don't want to be in the States. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I just wanted to get some context.
You did.
So, I mean, even though we're talking a little shop, because it's hard to just with, the relevancy of questions and how this all dynamic in, because representation is starting younger and younger. But this section we like to call In the Game. This is where we talk more about career things and how you got to where you are. Well, first thing I do want to start with, you had that decision, but where you kind of talked in the opening where, hey, am I going to be, chasing this corporate to C-level, or am I going to be an agent? So what were some of the things you did before you made that ultimate agency stuff, right? Because you did work, in undergrad, you did some work. You did do sponsorships. You did do, other kind of events and social media. So what was something that was like groundbreaking for you to help you make that decision in some of those early experiences?
Yeah, man, I was fortunate enough to work in the industry before I became an agent. Even when I was in college, I worked at University of Maryland. I was an intern to a marketing coordinator working with the athletics program, doing social media marketing, running my own sports, to eventually working with a group, a small business in which we hosted like camps, combines, national events like showcases, etc. We should like really recruit a lot of high level talent. The whole 7-on-7 teams, so similar like what you see like Niners level, like the OT7 and all that other stuff. We were on that early. We had some of the better teams back then. At that point, a lot of our guys who came from our program are currently NFL players. So I wish I was an agent at that point when they were coming out, to be honest with you. But I would say from that program, man, the powerful thing that we were able to really foster, building up a lot of quality young men who are not only professional athletes but also good citizens of society and sons of Baltimore. And then beyond that, man, so did some next level stuff, did some University of Maryland stuff, and then did some my own entrepreneurial things as far as just my accessories business, my nonprofit, and things of that nature. But sports has been in my DNA from my athlete to a professional, and been rocking and rolling in it for quite some time. And I interned also with some sports agencies too. I forgot about that while I was in college. So I was trying to just wear a lot of different hats, but somehow aligning with sports.
Now, what's an important? Oh, go ahead, Mitch.
You got it.
So, what are some important like events that you think that are their must-haves, right? Because we are blessed that you get to come down. I bump into you, every summer here in Vegas.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, what are some of events that are important, or I guess what do you look or what do you need to do when you're coming to an NBA summer league?
I mean, it's funny. I was just talking to our team about that because it hurts because we don't have a guy playing in the summer league and we were so close this year.
Oh,
Um,
damn.
but
Okay.
but we may be doing some marketing for some guys playing in there, so it still could be an opportunity. I would say for us, where we're at, I would say if you have a guy there, you're talking to teams. You're trying to if they're on a roster, you're trying to depending on where they fall, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to, obviously solidify that spot or plan for what's the next opportunity because you have not only NBA scouts, but you have a lot of international scouts there and that are present. And we're rubbing shoulders or we're sitting in the same section with those guys a lot of time. Beyond that, there are also a lot of side events that happen, like as far as like other showcases, by other, the Eurobaskets and the TBLs and the TBTs and all those other leagues. They're curating their own side showcases as well. So I think part of it is also understanding the caliber of the talents that you're representing and where they fall on that tier system to determine what events make the most sense for you to attend, but ultimately what makes the most sense for you to speak to, whom you're trying to communicate with, and whom you can present some value to, so that you're not just wasting that time and having a conversation, but you can have a conversation of substance or something that they could benefit from. So, because a lot of things that you can do at summer league beyond just professionally, and I feel like you can get lost in not being productive, even as an agent. So, but even if you don't have a client, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to foster relationships that'll put you in position if you do have a client. So,
Is that the same thing for like the finals, right? Or NBA All-Star Weekend, any other like events that we may not even know about that are sanctioned from
so I
FIBA
think
or
I would say All Star is more about connecting with brands. I would see
okay.
more value in that aspect. I feel like when you're talking about like showing up scouts, on the basketball side, I mean, you want to hit the Portsmouth Invitational in Virginia. That's a big one. You got obviously Summer League, and even I would say a lot of these circuits, the AAU circuits. Depending on whether it's sanctioned, you'll have NBA scouts at some of these, like the Peace Jam. It's going to be scouts there. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be college coaches there. So those are key events I feel like that you should definitely try to be present at.
Nice.
And just having tried what I've learned is you got to have objectives when you go to these events and try to be intentional. Don't try to be a fan, but try to be there working and on standing on business and really getting something out of it.
Do you
That's
see
good
like
stuff.
the my fault, EJ. You see the in season tournament turning into another one of those kind of meetup opportunities?
Yes, I think that's why they did it. I could see. I think the NBA is smart. I think they're trying to create a spectacle out of it with the courts and branding. I think the timing of it makes sense. So I think that's the objective. Honestly, I think that's the objective of the NBA to basically create another All Star. But earlier in the year.
Now with the NFL, just the kind of same question, right? Like, I really wanted to attempt to get to the combine this year, but that was just kind of back to back getting to Indianapolis. And after we were at All Star and that snow came down, I got a little gun shy. But what are some of the tempo? Because I believe, as I've been working my career, that Super Bowl is brands and business, right? Where I may not be the same. Do you know what I mean? So what are as you working with, or kind of as you checking out the NFL side, what are some of those tentpole events that people that are considering to be agents can either start going to or understanding, especially if they're in a career?
I mean, Super Bowl definitely. I mean, it's one of the biggest events in the world, right? And there's a lot of events happening. You'll see also a lot of these events. The bigger agencies are also at the point in which they're curating their own events too. But from a brand perspective, Super Bowl definitely is a major event. I would say on the football side, obviously the combine. In addition to that, I would try to be present at some of like these postseason All-Star games, like the Tropical Bowls, the Senior Bowls, those things, because that's where all of the personnel is going to be at, whether it's NFL to UFL to CFL. Depending on the caliber of your player or client, you got to figure out where they fit. And you want to have relationships with all of them, because ultimately you want to make sure that your client's working and not sitting on their hands, right? I would say definitely the postseason bowl games, and then I would say throughout the season, man, I think it's just key to be present and go to the games with whomever you're recruiting.
Yeah, I know. I mean, speaking of college football and the NFL, I think maybe the Big 12, was it the Big 12 this year that did the pro day for like the entire conference?
Yeah, that was the Big 12. Yep.
Yeah. Do you think that's a new trend coming, or that was just kind of special to the
I'm
Big 12?
curious to see. Like, I don't think. Well, I gotta keep. I mean, now the people that I thought was in the Big 12 ain't even in the Big 12 no more. But I was trying to think about. I'm thinking about like Texas's and those entities of the world. Would they even partake in that, or do they feel like it devalues their brand from a pro day perspective? I think it's good it can be potentially good for the athletes, because from what I have learned from talking to scouts, and you'll see that's something that typically happens with the smaller schools, like the colonial like the mid majors essentially.
The max,
They'll they sometimes will do more collaborative combines to get more bodies in the room and more scouts, so they don't got to bounce around or compete. Because sometimes what you've learned is like some of the smaller schools try to schedule the pro day. So let's just say, speaking of like, let's say Miami over Ohio, or we had a kid at Akron, right? So unfortunately, Akron, they had pro day was the same day as Ohio State, right? So depending on the distance, you know what I'm saying, and or now you're making scouts choose sometimes. And if you're a scout, where you gonna choose? You know what I'm saying? Like, unless you're there particularly trying to find a kid, so it can mitigate that. Or if you're at an Akron or Mac school, as you mentioned, it might amplify the value of teams want more scouts wanting to come and check out the event. So I can see it happening more with the smaller schools. I don't know. I'm curious to see how it is shaped with the larger conferences, because I think ego comes in when it comes to some of them. I don't see Georgia. I don't see the SEC doing this. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't see Georgia and Bama merging to do it, but it might happen. I mean, if it's just them, But so I mean, the way college football is shaping up, man, I'm not surprised if anything at this point. So, but I wouldn't say that this will happen. If I'm just speaking honestly, with some of those like depending on the conference, even with the Big Ten, I don't see Michigan, Ohio State merging and do a combine together. Or you know what I'm saying? I think it would be a fight at the pro day potentially, right? So
those are both called the Senior Bowl that happens in
right. Exactly.
Where you get those top times. Kind of going back into a basketball, because they're, I think, the ones that have been developing like the more leagues. How do you keep up with that? Like, how do you evaluate, like, you're consulting the client? Because one of the things you said is to get around and make sure your client is working, right? So Melo just came out with a league, right? And Stewie and I always butcher her name, but the young lady with the Lynx, just announced that they're coming out with the league as well. How do you evaluate if those leagues make sense for your clients, or just stay on top of all those things?
Well, I mean, so part of it is proof of concept, and with Melo, so what Melo did actually was more in alignment. He's supporting what we talked about, the NBL next, like so, like the next basically a league for like international guys who they feel like are next up that are going to like Australia and some of the other places. And I believe I'm not 100% sure, but I think he might be having a team. But I know he's definitely supporting like the next stars.
Got
Um,
you.
but he's not necessarily. I don't believe he's creating a league per se, but maybe a team
A
and
team, yes,
supporting
yes.
supporting the next stars. But I do think there are leagues that have been emerging, and I think initially you should have some apprehension. You know what I'm saying? I think you want to try to find out where's the proof of concept, and proof of concept could be the guys who come for that program, where have they transitioned to, because that's going to matter when you're talking when if your client goes there. Scouts want to understand what's the caliber of competition. And there have been some smaller leagues in which guys have gotten calls up though to like the G leagues, or gotten additional opportunities, which is starting to amplify the value of some of those smaller leagues and create better alternatives here in the States than you might necessarily have to go to. If you can't get in Europe, you might necessarily have to go to Mexico or some other places if they continue to raise the caliber of talent that they're bringing into some of these leagues. Um, but I think to answer your question, you evaluate it based off of just like proof of concept,
Right.
quality of coaching, connections and relationships that they may have with existing leagues that those players are trying to transition to, and see how they're actually how and where they're actually transitioning and developing players.
Love it. MH, man, you got them quick hits?
Yeah, Anthony, these are just some rapid fire kind of 2-option questions to kind of get to know you a little better for our listeners. You work or you play?
Both.
Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Physical strength, mental strength?
Mental.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Night in, night out?
Night out.
You driving or you flying?
Flying.
Street smarts or book smart?
Street smart.
Fresh food or fried food?
Fresh food.
A late night or midday nap? Late night sleep or midday nap?
I'm at the age now. The midday nap's not bad, man. I'm gonna go to midday naps.
All right. Top 5 Baltimore Hoopers. I got to get one of these top 5. And if that one got to be 1A. Is he Baltimore or is he New York? How do you?
He got Baltimore tattooed on him, man. Tell New York stop
okay.
that.
I'm a mellow guy.
He said tell him to stop, right?
Top 5 Baltimore Hoopers. This is tough right here. Woo! I'm gonna go with Melo, obviously. 1. Sam Cassell. 2. I'm gonna go with Angel McCartry on the women's side. 3.
Oh.
You are ready for the woman? You are ready for the woman? EJ said,
And shout out to Angel, man. She played with us here in Vegas, man, for sure.
Yeah, she's
Cool.
tough. She's tough.
Real
Angel
cold.
3. Who I want to go throw in there just for longevity? I might go Rudy Gay. You know, he's been doing it for a long time. Whew, this is tough.
Because you killing it so far, man.
This is tough. Kind of want to go old school, but I'm gonna go somebody who's not necessarily a NBA guy, but did it like at a high level collegiately. This is tough. I ain't gonna lie. This is it's so many. It's so many. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to go with. I'm thinking about a guard. So I'm trying to figure out which guard I want to go with.
There's one guard. I feel got to be in the top 5.
It's tough, man. Like
maybe collegiately, because of his collegiate career. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know.
Collegiately, I'm gonna say this. It's so many, bro. Like I'm scared to pick this one. I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna do my era just to keep it simple. Nope. I ain't keeping it simple. I'm gonna go with Malcolm. I'm gonna go Will Barton. I ain't gonna go guard. I'm gonna go Will Barton.
Will. I thought you was leaning towards Juan Dixon.
I was gonna do Juan, but then it was like Will. It was so many. Listen, bro. It's so many. I was gonna do Muggsy. I was gonna do like I could have did Reggie Lewis. I could have
Dunbar
did
boys.
like I could have went Mountain Delaney. It was then I was gonna do Dante Bright, who was like the #1 player in the country, coming out of high school with UMass. It was so many. I really it was tough, but I know I forgot a couple people. I don't even think I got a guard on that roster. Who I said, yeah, I need a guard. I need to take somebody. I need to put a guard on there. I don't got a. That's the top 5. It's cool. That's my top 5. I'm standing on business.
Your world, EJ.
All right, I'm gonna throw one in there. One of those kind of quick answers. Bronny, stay in school or go to the league?
Well, he going to the league at this point, so it don't even matter. He passed that deadline. He gone. I mean, I see value in both sides. I think I would have said stay, but I'm not mad if I'm going.
Absolutely.
Because USC gonna be tough this year.
They're gonna be really tough, right?
They got some guys. One of our former NIL guys he transferred there, so they got some guys like USC. They got a couple. They hit the portal pretty well.
Nice. So we know who to come to for those tickets that are so hard to get in that damn gym.
Oh, yeah.
So jumping into the winner's circle, man, this is where we kind of really promote and talk about, just the dope stuff that you got going on or anything else that we may have missed that we just want to make sure we cover, man. And I think, when we spoke, pre-show was just to talk about your company, right? And just the great things you're doing. And I guess the first thing I want to kind of put you out and just ask you, why are you different? Why is Renaissance Sports Group different?
Oh man, I'll lead to say this, man. Like everybody, I think a lot of people get into the space for transactions. We got into it, really, man, because it's our life's work. Like by the time I was high school and going on, I knew I wanted to be an agent. So I wasn't in it because NIL popped up, anything else, because I seen it on Ballers. I grew up essentially wanting to be a sports agent as my profession. So I just like to say, man, just like how guys take their career pursuit serious, like it's like they dream chasing, they want to be successful at it. That's how we're moving. We're dream chasing, we want to be just as successful at it, and we're qualified and competent to do it. That's a simple answer to it.
Building the marketing arm of it. You touched a little bit of it. How much goes into building your athlete's brand versus them coming in, kind of with what they want to do?
I'll say, man, really, we like to say, like, what do they have the appetite or capacity for? You'll have some athletes who, one, we just try to get them to understand first that social media, I like to say, it's a tool or a toy. You know what I'm saying? Everybody really want them to understand how they could use it and leverage it, but some of them feel like, hey, I know TikTok and IG better than you do. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, cool. We ain't going to step in too much, but some of the individuals who want that support and a little bit more humble in that process, we support them, provide strategy, content, calendars, etc. But I think ultimately, before you get into even to the weeds and the details, it's first just understanding what are they trying to convey and share about themselves, and from a marketability perspective, how and whom do you want to align with as you go through that process and that journey. I think that trickles down to brand partnerships, nonprofits, and NIL, and so on.
So when companies, right, are hiring, and like, as a company yourself, you're deciding what talent to take on, what is the best fit, or what do you guys look for now in an athlete, right? Because like just having the top person doesn't mean that that's the best fit for your company, right? Like you kind of gave it the example of someone thinking they know it all, right? So what's kind of a client that you look for?
A client, I think it varies from football to basketball. Because I think football, you can do things more of potential. Basketball, you can do things more of potential than football. Personally.
Okay.
But on the football side, I feel like, man, I think you're looking for measurables. You're looking for to be measurables, accolades, grades. When grades meaning context on how the scouts are evaluating or ranking it, that matters tremendously. Um, you're looking for maturity. You're looking for expectations and how those things align with where they're projected. And also just trying to get a better understanding of what type of support that they expect and can you meet them and in what capacity can you meet them with that support. Um, I think some of those things transition over to basketball. I think the grades don't matter as much, obviously, but more so how because certain teams feel about you, and if a few of them like you, and do a few of them willing to take that risk on you. Because I also feel like on the basketball side, if you don't make it in the NBA, you still have a lot of opportunity to play overseas basketball and get a good amount of money too, if you're one of those guys, you know. So, but that was I think it's a little bit different in football and basketball, but some of those things are transferable across. But I think also, man, I would say this: humility is a big thing for me. Um, yeah, humility is the big thing. I've learned that in this process, having humility, it can simplify the process, and I think also a want and desire to build and grow because we understand that we're a boutique agency, we're growing, and making sure those things align with their wants, desires, and interests. So,
How important is the community aspect of an athlete's brand?
so for us, it's extremely important. So even for like the word Renaissance and what it represents, it means to be very well versed. You know what I'm saying? As an individual, that's the essence of who I am. What I've done, I've always been invested in the community, and most of the people, the agents that work with us are the same. So even when it comes to like our clients, we challenge all of them to find a cause or initiative or something that they want to champion as well. It's not a mandate, but it's something that we push on them because we feel like that's indicators of what a Renaissance man or woman looks like, or what we like to say a Renaissance athlete. So it's very important to us. And I feel like ultimately, man, that's how you really judge the character of a person or value the character, determine the character of a person based off of what you could do for an individual when they can't really do much for you. And we want to continue to push that on all of our athletes because I think it's something that's needed to be done more in our communities.
Clue dropped the bomb on that. All right, so how do you feel, or what's the role of like, I was like Jaya and diverse representation, man? Like, what does that mean to you? Like seeing that, and because you're a part of that, culture that she's really, they have been building. And I think we kind of touched on it, but not really, not seeing that many, like us, like you were talking about earlier, the one, agent that was in Baltimore. Did I say it right? Baltimore.
Yeah, you said it right.
But like, what does that impact, or what does that kind of mean for you?
I mean, I love what Jaya is doing. I remember, honestly, it's like my first and second event I think I went to a while ago in Charlotte at the NBA All Star. That's when I first connected with her, and she's been really building and elevating diversity in these spaces that I think is more of is needed. Even when I mentioned earlier, my thesis at Maryland, my thesis was about actually like people of color in leadership roles within professional organizations or managerial roles, and I've seen the discrepancies. So I think going back, even that's something that sparked a fire within me as a college student, seeing those discrepancies and like, well, what's the how, why we're not in these roles in these positions, and really just our youth understanding that you can go pro in sports beyond being an athlete in a lot of different ways. So I think that's when Jaya or other entities matter tremendously. And I think it's needed for us to really influence and create changes within our communities, for sure. So shout out to them. Shout out to what you guys are doing and building as well. I think we need more of that representation, and I think that the tide is shifting. I think things are changing a little bit, and even on the agency side, I see more of us stepping into this space a lot more, even in my city. It's a lot of black agents. Wasn't many black agents when I started, but there's a lot of them now. So I'd like to believe that's a good thing. And as long as the athletes are continuing to sign with us as well, because honestly, what the unfortunate reality is, the white athletes don't sign with black agents. And you check the records on that. You ain't gonna see too many of them. But you gonna keep pushing, man.
And I'm going to get in trouble if we talked about the frat a little bit, and my pops, I'll get mad if I didn't say nothing about the frat. So how does that help in your work professional as well, the network?
Oh man, on the football side, Q's running the NFL. I ain't gonna lie, we deep on the football side. It's crazy. It's crazy on the football side. Basketball, I wish if we had the same context on the basketball world like we had in football, I might have first round draft pick by now. But I ain't gonna lie to you. But no, man, I think part of the reason I joined the organization was for networking. You get what I'm saying? I think it's highly valuable. I do feel like my fraternity values friendship and really building and uplifting each other. And I've seen it happen multiple times. And even like you talk about the combine, I haven't been to the combine. I'm going this year. Like all of the Qs get together at the NFL combine, and it's a lot of them from.
Wow.
And it's a good meeting. I know dudes who are a part of other fraternities, and they come because they want to be in the room. You know what I'm saying? So it's a power in that that group economics, the group cooperation that we have. And I think, man, as a community, I think we have an issue with like nepotism per se. I don't know what it is that we struggle with. And I think we need to be a little bit more intentional about leveraging it to our advantage. Because a lot of other people do. But no, to answer your question, man, my fraternity is powerful. I'm glad that I was able to join it and leverage some of the benefits of it because I earned it.
Let's go. All right, so man, we're getting to the end, we're wrapping up, and this is what we like to call the assist, right? This is where you get to drop some coaching gems or some jewels. It could be anything, man, like something you would tell your younger self, a quote or words that you live by, or just something you wish you could tell your younger self. So this is kind of where you just give us that quick, the assist.
I mean, the simple thing I would tell my younger self, man, is just successful was those that do. I think I was doing, but it was other ways I could have done more to work directly in alignment with being an agent. Like I was literally at a college campus with Division I athletes, guys who became Super Bowl champions, played in the league. I should have been on them back then. Talking about, hey, who's your representation? Because y'all coming to all of our Q parties and everything along those things, So I wish I would have started doing even in the spaces that I didn't even think I was ready for at an earlier age. I mean, that's the simple thing. And I also believe that it's for myself, but also anybody else. I think, man, when you're in college, particularly, you got to network with individuals before you need them. So when you do need them, it's easier to build and connect. Because I went to college with some people who are really doing exceptionally well. And I have some pretty good relationships, but if I had networked even more than what I did, I joined some certain organizations, but you kind of can tell who's going to be the successful ones. Or when you're in college, you know who those individuals are. So even building deeper with them at an early age was something that would help me even in this process now.
No, I feel that. Appreciate that. MH, final thoughts?
Anthony, man, we appreciate your time, man. Love, man. It was real informative and a good time, and definitely a fan of your work, and want to keep supporting you as you move forward, man. Appreciate you.
Man. Thank you guys, and y'all make sure to tell Michelle Bell I was nice. All right, when y'all talk to Michelle Bell.
we gonna get the dirt offline, man.
Do some research.
We get the dirt offline, man. Well, hey, as always, man, thank you to our guest, Anthony, man. We appreciate you sharing, blessed the time. We know it's always a busy time as an agent, man, whether it's on or off season, man, you always got work. So thank you so much for giving us that time. Thank you to people for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. As you know, we drop new episodes every Thursday. So please subscribe, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Know that visual representation matters, man. So if you see it, you can be it. And know, like we always say, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo. Look. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap.